Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch, our show following everything happening with the latest gaming hardware. I'm Jamin Hatfield, and this week, joined by special guest Seth Macy from IGN's Nintendo podcast, Nintendo Voice Chat.
Hello, Super Nintendos.
Hello there. As well as Max Scoville from IGN's PlayStation podcast, Podcast Beyond.
Welcome to Next Gen, Seth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey!
And Ryan McCaffrey from IGN's Xbox podcast, Podcast Unlocked.
Always good to see Seth Macy.
And this week, it's time to talk about Nintendo Switch 2, or whatever it ends up being called, which should be the Super Switch. October now is going to mark the 7th anniversary of the reveal of the Nintendo Switch, which up to that point was known as the NX. And I believe it was October 20th, 2016, Nintendo revealed the official name as the Switch, confirmed all those rumors that have been swirling for months that it was a powerful, for the time, handheld with two detachable Joy-Con controllers that acted as individual controllers and a TV connected dock for playing on the big screen. And of course, one of the big selling points is that you could play Skyrim on the go. So why are we feeling nostalgic about the reveal of the Nintendo Switch? Well, the stars might be aligning for a reveal of the Switch 2 around the same time period. At the very least, I think why October is making sense more and more is that I don't think Nintendo would want to make the reveal before the release of The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom on September 26th. However, there is the info that should be noted that ever since the launch of the Switch in 2017, Nintendo has held a Nintendo Direct in September every single year without fail. So if it didn't have a Nintendo Direct this month, it would be the first time since the Switch was launched in 2017. All sorts of rumors swirling now about the Nintendo Switch 2. The head of our sister publication, GamesIndustry.biz, said on a recent podcast that developers he's spoken to who are currently working on Switch 2 games are saying that they're hoping it's out early next year. The original Switch was out in early 2017, so I think a roughly 6-month window from reveal to release worked for Nintendo last time. Nintendo has said it would announce the new Switch within its current fiscal year, which ends March 31st, 2025. And of course, today there's all these leaked photos, alleged photos of the Nintendo Switch 2. Not official, of course, but people are definitely talking about it. So, with all that said, Seth, we go to you first. Are we on the verge of the Nintendo Switch 2 finally being revealed?
We are on the verge. And I say that from a place of just sheer hope and gut feeling. But we were having our NVC meeting earlier, and Logan Plant, one of my co-hosts on NVC, had a great point. Nintendo has not tweeted at all today. It's been almost 24 hours since they tweeted.
And that's unusual for them?
That's pretty unusual.
Okay,
they
okay.
will tweet at least once or twice a day, unless they're battening down the hatches, getting ready for something big. So I want to believe. I am very Fox Mulder about the Nintendo Switch 2. So take kind of everything I say with a grain of salt, because a lot of it is just me being very hopeful and wishful that we finally, because we've been talking about this on NBC, I swear to God, for like 2.5 or maybe 3 years now.
Of course, yeah. Well, we've been talking about it on this show too. People have been expecting and wanting the reveal of the Switch successor, as you say, for many years now. So, I mean, what do you think, Seth? What's your best educated guess? First of all, is there still going to be a Nintendo Direct this month, or will they skip that for the first time since the Switch launched?
I'm going to say Nintendo doesn't like to break a streak. So I'm going to say that, we still have, like 12 more days left in the month. So it might
Mhm.
be a late Nintendo Switch Direct. It might be in conjunction with the release of the new Zelda game, Echoes of Wisdom, coming out. As far as Switch 2 news, I just don't know. Like I said, I really want to believe. I had thought initially that maybe Nintendo wouldn't even bother until after the holiday season, because they didn't want to slow down current Nintendo Switch sales. But they've already put their Black Friday Nintendo Switch
Right,
bundles out, and for the first
right.
time, we have the OLED version with Mario Kart and Nintendo Switch Online. That's a $19.99 value. So I think maybe Nintendo is kind of even Nintendo's ready to move on. I mean, the Switch slowed down pretty significantly, more than they expected in sales. So, I mean, now's the time to get people
Wow.
hyped for the spring.
I don't know what they're expecting then, considering they're knocking on the door of lifetime PlayStation 2 sales, which we didn't think was possible. Uh, I mean, that would be unique. It's starting to become unique to ship with a disk drive in your console. And real quick, Seth, is that Life Force running behind you?
That is Gradius 3 on the
Gradius
Super.
3 on Super Nintendo. Cool. Ryan, what are your thoughts? First of all, are we on the verge of the reveal of the Nintendo Switch 2? And I know you'd be thrilled if they decided to reveal the next 3D Mario along with it.
Yes and yes, but I definitely think it's happening. And whether see, I could see them missing a September direct because are they going to want to do this during TGS or are they going to want the moment completely to themselves, maybe the
Hmm.
week after, which would pretty well put them into October. I guess they could squeeze it in on the very, very, very tail end of September. Maybe they do want it to be within TGS. That's entirely a possibility. But yeah, it's time. There's no reason not for them to follow the Switch playbook
Hmm.
after it worked so well. So, this, whether it's late September or sometime in October, having the reveal makes a ton of sense. As for Mario, gosh, I hope so. I mean, it, the time, the time horizon makes sense just given how long we are coming up now on the 7-year anniversary of the release of Super Mario Odyssey,
Hmm.
which means if it's a day one launch title, that's potentially a roughly 7.5 year development cycle if indeed that team moved on to begin iterating on concepts and ideas for the next main 3D Mario game immediately after Odyssey. I don't know. They could have moved on to another project and maybe they haven't even started the next 3D mainline Mario until maybe the last 3 or 4 years. I'm not sure. But in any case, it is time. The calendar tells us it's time for both the system and the next Mario. And yeah, it just makes too much sense for those rumors to not be true in terms of it being available in the earlier part of 2025 because again, same thing can happen as happened with the Switch where all the early adopters get to jump on it first without the Black Friday shoppers and the holiday more casual market buyers competing for the same amount of limited inventory. So all of us, basically, everyone on this show and watching this show, can have a better chance to get it in March, April, whenever it's going to actually drop next year. And then it gives Nintendo plenty of time to ramp up their production, their supply, to have a huge, huge, huge holiday season, its first holiday season in
Hmm.
2025. So, yeah, I think, I mean, you can never quite predict Nintendo. Like,
Hmm.
they will always march to the beat of their own drum. So, just because they've done something before doesn't mean they'll do it again. But as you noted, Damon, given the absolutely 99th percentile level of success that the Switch has had,
Yeah.
there's really not a lot of reason for them to not follow the same playbook for the Super Nintendo Switch.
And I don't think anyone's really expecting it to be, on the same level as the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X in terms of power.
Right.
That's not the play field that Nintendo plays in anymore. But Ryan, do you think there's any world where the Switch 2 gets close to the Series S?
Well, I think what were those? I don't know if it was on this show or not. That we have many shows on IGN, and it's tough to keep them straight, but they're all fun. I feel like at some point we talked about it was that the rumor was it was around PS4 level power, which would make sense in that that is a step up from the original Switch, and in terms of trying to woo third party publishers, it basically says to all the third party publishers, hey, all the games that you already sold last gen on the PS4 and Xbox One that maybe you've also sold again in
Yeah.
remaster form on the PS5 and Series X. Well, guess what? Here's a whole nother opportunity to sell them again
Hmm.
to a whole new audience on Nintendo. So, do I hope it's more powerful than that? Yeah, I mean the Series S is. I don't recall the teraflop comparison between the. I think the Series S is more powerful than the PS4. PS4 was something like 1.2 teraflops, and I don't even remember what the Series S is, but maybe in the threes or four if memory serves. But yeah, if it's Series S level, that'd be fantastic in a handheld form factor. But I mean, regardless, I really want 4K output to the TV. It obviously doesn't need to be 4K on the handheld because it's a tiny screen, but everyone, I mean, 4K is the standard now. Everybody has 4K TVs in their houses at this point. So I really hope Nintendo has dock output for 4K on this thing.
Now, Max, Sony just revealed the PlayStation 5 Pro, which is very expensive. I mean, you could maybe even call it a luxury gaming console. And then they also have the PlayStation Portal, which is not doing the same thing as the Nintendo Switch, but has turned out to be a very successful little accessory for PS5. So whenever Nintendo comes along and reveals the Switch 2, what does that mean for Sony? How much attention does Sony pay what Nintendo is doing?
That's a very good question. I don't really know what goes on inside Sony these days. They've made some questionable decisions. Things are working out for them. I'd say outside of Japan because the PS5 is selling just fine. But I've read that inside Japan, it's the Switch is eating its lunch. So it's curious to see what they're trying to do exactly. The the age old discussion of will Nintendo make a powerful console? It is no. It's they make they make reasonably powerful devices that play really fun games, and they don't need to be super powerful. So I think Sony's playing a very different game. Again, I always harp on this, but Nintendo is an ancient game company. They are a toy and game company. They've been around since the days of making Hanafuda cards in the Meiji era or whatever. Like, and PlayStation is an electronics company. One of them makes hardware, and one of them is more about not even software, but just experiences. And they're always kind of marching to the beat of their own respective drums. But as for the idea of a Switch 2 being, comparable to a PS4 power wise, that would be a very smart move. Because one of the big thing that's been, I would say, holding back, the PS5 generation is how long it takes to make new games that can take advantage of this cutting edge hardware. Whereas if publishers can buy some time by reheating some leftovers, so to speak, and putting them on a Switch 2, that would be great. But as far as Sony really worrying about this, I would say they don't need to worry about it any more than they're already worried about the Switch, which is to say somewhat. But yeah, again, the people who really want to play games where you see each individual eyelash on the protagonist and you can like count their pores, and you want to play at 120 frames a second, it's a very different appeal for Nintendo hardware and games. It's a different animal.
Well, if the Switch is part of it's a little bit gray. If the Switch is part of this console generation, I don't know that it is. I mean, it's definitely the best selling console of the generation. It's sold more than twice as many as PS5 has, and I think a big part of that is the price. $300 is all that the Switch costs, so $200 less than PS5 or Series X. Seth, when Switch 2 is revealed, what price does it come in at? Is there any world it can come in at $300?
$300, I doubt very, very highly. I don't think that's going to happen unless until maybe they do sort of a iterative update with like how they do the Switch Lite, which is $199. Maybe there'll be a Switch 2 Lite at $300. But I am up until the PlayStation 5 Pro was announced at what $1,200. No, I'm just kidding. It's $699. I didn't think that the Switch 2 would be anything more than $399. I thought $399 was kind of exactly where, but now I almost think Nintendo could get away with $499 if
No
it
way.
specs out
No
well
way.
enough.
Not a chance.
I think they could. I think they could do it. If the specs are good, if people like what they see, I think they could get away with $499, but I do think $399 is going to be the price point that Nintendo puts out there, because I mean that's irresistible. Like, that's just hard to say no when who doesn't have $400 just burning in a hole in their pocket right this very second.
And if it is PS4 Pro level in terms of power, well, base PS4, the PS4 was debuted at $399. So
True.
Fast forward however many years, but also shrink it down into a handheld form factor, $399 feels like the right price for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm almost certain that's what Nintendo's going to go for, because they're smart enough to know, like, people don't want to spend a lot of money on a Nintendo console, so that's why they kind of go with a little bit older stuff, a little bit, shave a couple of edges off here and there on the hardware and get it at a price point that people can afford. But I don't know. We'll see. I hope it's not $4.99, but I almost think they could. I almost think they could get away with it in this.
I think
Hey,
they could get
Seth.
away with it, but would that be a good idea? I mean, they're the family friendly company. They're the
Yeah.
one where mom and dad buy this for the kids for Christmas. Like I think that would alienate a lot of people, especially when you look at the competition. And obviously it'd be nice if the PS5 had a price cut by now. But when the alternative is, hey, you can grab a Xbox Series S, kind of a no brainer on that front.
Yeah, that is.
What's the relative most expensive Nintendo console ever at launch? Would it, like, my brain wants to say the Virtual Boy, but I don't remember what that actually cost. It was just a big failure, but it couldn't have been cheap back then.
No, I want to say that was $199 actually. The N64 was $249 when it came out in 1996, and now somebody's yelling, "No, it was $199." But yeah, inflation's a thing.
I mean, I believe that that Nintendo could make an amazing $500 console that plays the next, open world Zelda game. It looks absolutely unbelievable, and the smaller, like, hardcore Nintendo fans would eat it up and love it. But you're not going to get 150 million sold at $500.
Yeah, I mean, there is that opportunity for like a dual SKU kind of thing. It's sort of like the Asus ROG Ally or ROG Ally. Nobody actually knows how to say it. There are two versions of that. There's one with a Z1 chip and there's one with a Z1 Extreme chip, and one's just a little bit better and costs $100 more. And other than that, there's no real difference there. So,
well, according to the rumors we've heard about the Super Switch or whatever they're gonna call it, it's gonna have an LCD screen, not an OLED screen, which a lot of people are groaning about. But neither did the baseline Switch when it launched, and I could very easily see Nintendo launching with one SKU, one version. It's not confusing for anybody who's shopping for holiday presents. And then a little bit later, maybe a year and a half, something like that, they double dip and they put out the higher end version. And anybody
Agreed.
who's been playing their Switch every day, we saw this left and right with the first generation of Switch, where tons of people, tons of IGN employees were like, well, mine is really beat up because I love this thing so much, and the OLED screen looks gorgeous. A little bit of a bigger screen, that's an easy sell. What really bumps me out about this, though, is we've heard lots of rumors and lots of leaks, but we haven't heard a code name. And we've made up our own code names,
or
but
Revolution, right?
Yeah.
Dolphin. Okay, Seth, give it a code name.
I am going to call it the Nintendo Raptor.
Okay.
It's just the coolest dinosaur. Yoshi's a dinosaur. So it's gonna have razor sharp graphics, and it's gonna be small. A lot of people don't know that Raptors were about the size of a turkey. So
yeah,
there it is.
And there were probably Raptors in Turok, which was at one time a Nintendo exclusive.
Yes, and it's on the NSO Mature expansion pass now.
I like the idea of Nintendo just dropping the ball and shipping a $500 console where Turok is the launch title, and we all just like, you had it covered. It was fine. It was gonna be great, and they're like, yeah, it's $500. Turok, take it or leave it.
Well, here's hoping we do finally get this revealed, the Nintendo Switch 2. These alleged photos that were leaked today, Seth, I think from the ones that I looked at, in terms of form factor, it looks very similar to the current Switch, just lighter and thinner. Is that how it looks to you? And would you be surprised if it ends up looking very similar to the
No, I wouldn't be
Switch?
surprised at all. I mean, like we've said, it's the second best-selling console of all time, which is kind of unprecedented. And PlayStation 2 had an enormous advantage just because it was a DVD player back in the day when people didn't have DVD players, and PlayStation brand was so strong back then. So yeah, like Nintendo, they went from Wii to Wii U, and whoa, nothing worked out there. So I think they're gonna kind of go with what is working extraordinarily well. I don't know if these renders are real or fake. I kind of think that they're fake, but I have no evidence of either.
Yeah.
It's real, if it's real or if it's fake or not. So, but I would not be surprised at all to see just the same form factor, the Joy Cons, and a screen in the middle, like we've all gotten used to over the last 7 years.
I mean, that's kind of the form factor of every handheld gaming PC out there, right?
Yeah, I mean, as long as it
What?
stays thin, I love my Steam Deck, but I tend not to bring it with me when I go on airplanes because it's a big old chunky boy.
It is. It's true. Well, as soon as Nintendo is ready to reveal the Switch 2, we will be discussing it at length on this very show. Got a couple polls to check in with. Last week we were talking about the PlayStation 5 Pro, and we were sharing that a poll that we're running on IGN. 73% were saying it's way too expensive, and that's exactly where it ended up when the poll was final. Over 46,000 people voting that it is way too expensive. Seth, you're kind of a hardware guy. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. Is the PlayStation 5 Pro way too expensive in your opinion?
In my personal opinion,
Mhm.
yes, it is, but I would like to remind everyone that value is wholly subjective, and I
It's true.
still think it is going to sell like crazy this holiday season.
Crazy. Well, it's interesting you
Look,
say that because the other poll is, will you buy a PS5 Pro? And 68% say no, too expensive. Of course, these are just, not a scientific poll.
I think it'll be a very successful product when it launches.
Well, a lot of us were wrong about the PlayStation Portal as well. I could see the PS5 Pro. I expect it to sell out immediately, but of course, we don't know how much will be available at launch. So, Max, in the week since we were talking about PS5 Pro, any other thoughts you want to render? Too expensive? Will it sell?
I they need to show off literally anything it can do. I just, the more I think about it, the more I think that the timing of that announcement was just, it 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 felt like they leaked something. Like it
Mm.
was information without context. It was Mark Cerny giving us, telling us how the sausage is made. You don't sell sausage by showing a, a meat grinder. You don't, like, this is not the time to go under the hood. Uh, I again, TGS is around the corner. I really hope that Sony comes out swinging and drops a bunch of cool stuff that gets people excited. We just got leaked, or like an ESRB rating for a remastered version of Horizon Zero Dawn, which
Mhm.
is a great game. But again, I question who is going to be jumping for joy at the idea of buying a $700 console to play this game who hasn't already played it. It's kind of a
Mm.
who is this for situation. That
Well,
said, if they remastered Bloodborne, I would immediately buy a $700 console to play it on.
that's the whole thing. That Bloodborne is what people really want remastered, but then they're like, no, here's The Last of Us Part 2, Horizon, here's Until Dawn. It's just like they're doing absolutely everything except Bloodborne. Uh, Something tells me we'll be talking about PS5 Pro more on this show going forward. Here's a poll for you to vote on for next week. What feature do you want most out of the new Switch? Longer battery life, 4K resolution, a bigger screen, better Joy-Con? Make sure to vote at IGN.com the day this episode goes live, and we'll share the results with you next episode. And that's going to do it for this edition of Next Gen Console Watch. Thank you so much to Seth for joining us. We'll have you on again soon when we have more details on the successor to the Nintendo Switch. Thank you to both Max and Ryan. Thank you to Jobert and Marian and everyone working behind the scenes to make this episode possible. My name is Damon. We'll be back next week with the latest gaming hardware news. We'll see you then.